So anyway, this is 22 layers previously made, cut in half. It's about 6 inches long, an inch and a quarter wide, and 5/16 or so thick, maybe 3/8. As you can hear, the forge is going in the background. This is getting ready to go in. What I'm going to do is smooth it out some. You can see all the bumping and rippling and all that. And the fuller I got here to get it wider, stretching the metal this way. Some light ones over on this side. We're going to go ahead and make it a little bit smoother and flatter. Then we're going to let it cool, cut it in half, flip it over on itself, make it 44 layers, and start again with the next process of drawing it back out into knife-like shape. We'll see what happens. So today what I'm doing right now at least is mostly just flattening and smoothing out the billet. So you can see the hammer here. This is my lightweight 2.5 pound engineering hammer. You see how it's rounded over and the other side is still square and flat, although rounded on the edges. You do that because you don't want the edges to dig into the metal and cause a really deep mark, and because the rounding draws out the metal and makes it longer in that dimension this way. If I wanted to make it wider, I'd hit it this way and stretch it wider. But most of what we're going to be doing today is working on my forge press, which is a lot more accurate than my hand and a hammer. So while I move some stuff around, I have taped out the line up for it. I took my forge press off of the bench where the camera is currently sitting, and now I've got it on a rolling cart so I can move it around where I need it. Made a lot of sense to me to do it that way. And as a reminder, the forge press works like this. Squish. Release. Squish. Release. So this is a log splitter. That's a fact. These are two solid 1-inch bars. 4 of them all together because the other side has 2 as well. And that's still 6.5 tons it generates. Still makes it deflect. There's just no getting around it. Put a piece on the back here. Welded this on so it impacts the rail here to keep this from going up, and it still goes up. Welded this on. This is since the last time you saw it in operation. So the whole back thing is now welded on just about every seam I could possibly get a welding head into, and it still bounces up. So it's as good as it's going to get. See how my steel's doing. After I put my gloves on. It's toasty. Let's get this thing in the press. See if it's going to work for me today. Squish. Squish. That's the cold metal sticking to the hot. It now, put the other end into the fire. I'm going to try to. See if I can get my manual dexterity working today or not. There we go. And back into the fire. A lot more of that over and over. So a lot of this is repeating, but the bottom line is never sure who watches what, so here it is again. These dies that are in here right now, which are already warm from that one previous session that I showed you, these are my flats. that one's pretty tight in there, so I leave that there most of the time. And I'll explain that. So this does a squishy with a flat, just to flatten the steel out. This is for drawing out. When I put it in this way, the rounded surface here shoots this surface of the metal, makes it go wider, whereas this is still flat. So stretches the metal lengthwise. So I drop it in. If the metal's like this, it's going to pull more length this out of it. If I have another one set it this way, that goes in this way, and I drop it in, get it backwards. This then hits the metal and stretches it up and down, making it wider. If you want to get really aggressive with making it longer, I have two of these. So I can actually make it, yeah, let me hold them right. You can actually do this and really squish it, but sometimes they go, and kind of cuts the metal in half. So I don't do that very often. Cut it in half. This is also what is known as a fullering die, because it makes a fuller into the blade. Now, because of the way I designed all of these, I can also take them over to my anvil and put this part into my hardy hole, which is that square hole on my anvil, and it holds it still. And I can take it like this, and I can actually hit the metal, beating it onto this and stretching it out too. We're also making knocks or bends or indentations that are necessary for making the handle. So, dual usage. Yeah, all of these made by me in the shop. All the welding is me. All the welding is me. For the forge press, I had contractors welding these parts because the 1-inch metal, my welder's not capable of getting enough penetration for that. But when I got it back, quite frankly, I look at it and I think I could have done better than that. Because in theory, my welder can't do this either. That's a 5-inch bar stock on a 1/4 inch. My welder's rated for 3/16 of an inch. And I'm here to tell you, that's solid. I put 6.5 tons of force on that every time I use it, and it's still there. So, might be time to check the steel. I'm not going to show you every single cycle of this because it gets, frankly, quite boring. So, we'll get back to you. Sometimes, despite the fact that I have a 6.5 ton forge press, the best way, most accurate way, and targeting specific areas to actually move hot steel is by hand. Right there. You can see the forge over here. It says Opa plays with fire. And I'll be right back. I'm going to pull it out and beat on it a little bit. That groove I had in it from the fuller didn't want to come out with the flooding dies, so I'm smoothing it specifically around that area. Hot metal. And that's the third time I've done that. because the act of doing that also makes the billet wider as it pulls that fuller out. So I had to go along and make sure it's actually still staying the same, because as I said earlier, the next step is to cut it in half and stack it. And when you do that, you want it to be the same width and length. Kind of important. Okay, so you guys have already seen this side of the shop. That's the forge, the anvil, all the wood. Keep in mind that we moved into here, bought the house in 2020, and the supply shortage of COVID-19 couldn't have furniture, etc. delivered for sometimes months. So I built some. Built the bench, built all this crap out. This is where all the grinding action takes place. Now you're not seeing a grinder, you're seeing belt grinders. That one, the white one, is a 2x72. Means the belt action is actually 2 inches wide and 72 inches around. It removes a lot of material real fast. That's a 2 horsepower, 220 volt engine that gets converted down to 110 because that's what I got. That's a 2x42 from Grizzly. This is a 4x36. That is my flatter because it's got that nice long platen right here. Let me quit waving the camera around. This is my rubber stick. You use it to clean off the belts. Just a quick zip, and it cleans it off. I used to use a sneaker for it, old sneaker. I got some insulation back here. There are a lot of hot sparks. That's all I got to say. It's a lot of hot sparks flying. Burn my shirt off if I stand too close to it and catch them on my belly. And then various workstations. Let me do a quick pass around. This little guy here, the Cuisinart, that used to be my pizza oven. Now it's used to temper blades. I put it in for an hour at a shot at about 350 and tempers the blades. Hand tool storage, dust extractor, chop saw, glue bench, kind of busy, tool storage. As you can see, I'm mostly put away. Household storage. This is where I actually do the finishing for the knives. WD-40 hardener, epoxies, Windex, acetone, stuff like that. Oh, bloody paper towel. I do in fact cut myself when I'm making knives occasionally. Steel storage, freezers, one bandsaw on a portaband on a stand, one drill, Ryobi, one titanium 125 flux core welder. Everything that goes along with making that thing work fine. Man, it does work fine. I think I'm running out of gas. Might be the last heat. We'll find out. And there it is, 7 inches long, nice and flat, more or less squared. We'll go ahead and let that cool off. And then you cut it in half, grind out 2 sides nice and smooth and clean. Clean's the important thing, and flat. And then put it together, weld it up, put it back in the hot box, beat on it, and make it 44 layers. That's how it's done. So here's the bad news. There's no shortcut on this part. It's work, work, work. And I'm not going to be quick. I used to hold it in my hands and do it, but that's 3 weeks old. I don't do it anymore. Well, as you can probably see, I'm wearing my welding shirt. Well, you wouldn't know that, but it's a Carhartt, so it must be a welding shirt. Anyway, let me turn this around. The billet in half and put it back together again, cleaned up the inside, put it back together again, welded this tab. Now it's still burning hot, so I'm not going to do it. So I can use this to hold it with, because otherwise I'm taking up half of the space. That's only 3/8 of an inch long. So the tongs would take up half of that, and I'd only be able to beat on a little bit at a time, and that's not good. So now I'm going to light up my forge and heat it up to forge welding temperature. It's about 2200 degrees, 24, somewhere in there. And slightly tap it together until it's what's known as forge welded, which means it has become one homogeneous piece of steel. I know I probably pronounced that wrong. I don't care. It's homogeneous. So maybe I do care. There you go. That's my boric acid soaked brick that I use for doing fluxing, because that's what we're going to be doing this time. And the flame shooting out the front of it, that's called a dragon's breath. It keeps all the oxygen out so that there's none inside to make scale and ugly stuff. That's what's going on. There's always some in the crowd that ask me, well, Chuck, how can you tell when it's 22 to 2400 degrees? And old-timey blacksmiths would tell you they could tell by the color of the steel. It's a bright straw yellow, makes it 2400. And I cheat. Technology says $29 gets me a infrared thermometer that is capable of up to, I want to say, where's it at? There it is, 2732 degrees. And it's pretty accurate. Like I can tell you right now, the phone is 89 degrees. The floor is 71. It is the day after Thanksgiving, 2024. So check my local weather, or just hit the street outside, 76. So there you have it. I guess my phone's hot because I was touching it. We're not up to temp yet. Let me turn you around. Oh, where's my forge? What a messy garage you have. There we go. Naughty, naughty, must have a glove. Said it was 22, 27, 22, 32, somewhere in there. It's good enough for a first little tap. This is a light tapping just to set the welds. I don't know, actually, we've got a flux first. Let you see it. See how shiny it is? That's the flux melting on it. That is boric acid. It's going down into the cracks, if there are any, in the openings, and finding any impurities, and has an acid eating it away. We'll get it back up the forge pit. The steam, I don't know. Now, what I did by doing that down here on the floor is I made it nice and slippery. So, a little bit of housekeeping goes a long way. If only I could find my broom. In case you're wondering, yeah, that forge is hot, but you can stand right in front of it. People do it all the time. I didn't point that as well as I thought I did. Yep. So anyhow, that flux, borax, which if you're old enough or you go out shopping enough, you'll know that borax is also used in 20 Wheel Team laundry soap. It is borax. And I'm a hobbyist, so it's a poor man's solution to getting the same thing, boric acid, into your forge welds. Damn fly. Yeah, there are still flies here in southern Arizona in November. No mosquitoes though. And I'll leave this running. I want you to see the whole cycle. First of all, I'm going to point it so you can see stuff. It's got to get me a better camera, huh? Let's get this out the way. And while I'm getting stuff out the way, I guess I better get this out the way. One tray of borax. Sure, because that's the best way to do it. This is both the art and the science, so follow the science. Tongs are long and short. The long ones allow me to hold it without a glove. Short ones, you better have a glove on. That's all there is to it. I always wear gloves because I've got a shirt. Except with this hand when I'm doing flux. It takes a little bit more dexterity. Let me re-sweep this. You get the idea what's going on from now. This is the fun part of forging. You get to sit around a lot and think. And look at stuff and think about stuff. Unfortunately, when I'm making videos like this, I'm using my phone, and I really can't read news or throw it around on Facebook, so instead I'm going to talk to you. This is going to be, what I just put together was two pieces. I started off at 11 layers each, and I drew that out and welded it together, forge welded it together, and then cut that apart into two and made 22 layers. I cut that all apart and took 1/2 of that and made a 8-inch chef's knife for Jillian, my sister Stacy's daughter, because she's an actual chef. And I figured if I'm going to make knives, I should give one to an actual chef. I mean, I'm not a chef, I use my knives. I've got 3 of them hanging on the wall that I use pretty much every day. I don't like to give away non-Damascus. So this is the second half of that 22 layer. that I have stretched out earlier today, let it cool off, cut it in half, cleaned it up, and I'm now forge welding that together as 44 layers. Now the thing that always gets in my head is it's 44 layers, but I ground off at least one while cleaning it up to put back together again. So how do you count that? And everything I can see, if a professional puts together 10 layers and then cuts it in half and does 20, he's still going to be grinding some off. He still calls it 20. If he makes it into 5 different pieces, and a lot of them that's what they do, suddenly they're at 100. And they don't call it 93 because they ground through some, because that's kind of awkward. So at this point, I'm going to stop talking, go pick up that hot piece of steel over there, check its temperature, and beat on it again. And I'm going to keep repeating that, probably put it through the forge press at least once before I call it a solid piece of steel for sure. Another quick side note, just in case you've never heard me say it before, boric acid, when it's heated up to, I think it's over 11 or 1200, but don't quote me on that. That's when it actually becomes, instead of borax, it becomes boric acid. And it will eat through brick, steel, my entire forge, and drip onto the floor and eat through the concrete floor. So, what I've got in there is I've got a sacrificial brick that all of my forge welding with borax uses. Because when I heat it back up again, it's still boric acid in there. It's still eating through the brick from the very first time I ever used it. It's still hot, you know, it melts when it gets hot and still eats through bricks. So when that brick gets to the point where I don't think it's going to make it another time of welding, I throw it away. And I put another one in. I got a box of 7 of them down there. That's the first one. So, first one from this set of 7. I did one other before that was a lesser quality brick. It didn't last long. It broke apart. It's the second time I used flux. So, enough chatter. The director said action, so here I go. Scoop that out of there. Put it to the brush. Get some of that scale off. Last time I was hitting on it, I actually shot acid all over the place, including down the neck of my shirt. Let's hope I don't do it again. Flat my face. Just walking it all the way around the edge. Let's do it again. Get my holding piece back up. It's looking pretty good. One more time by hand. That's a 3-burner forge, so as far in as I can get it, it's always better. Because that's where it's hottest. Yeah, I know I can't make it so you can see both the forge and the anvil. And I think the anvil's more fun. You'll note that every time when I come back, I'm sitting down. I still have the circulation issue going on with my legs, and I need to sit as much as I can while doing this, otherwise I'm just going to wear myself out. So, I sit a lot. I mean, why not? I could put her around the shop putting stuff away, but if you've seen my shop, you know that's not me. I'm hearing signs of gas running out, so that may be it for this video series. I need to let it cool down and change out the brick anyway. The acid's now gone. I just beat the crap out of it and The last time I fluxed it, like I said, it splattered all over the place. So I just brushed off what little was still there. It runs out of propane. I'll just let it naturally cool until I can pull the brick out. That takes several hours, so it's tomorrow before I do that. They don't show this on Forged in Fire because the forges they use there, if they're used for fluxing, they throw them away. I mean, they cost $500 for a forge, but you know the show's making enough money to throw $2,000, and they got a special deal, I'm sure. They just get another set in for next week. Anyway, happy forging. So I just put it through the forge press once and looked pretty darn good. I'm going to change camera around so you can see the forge press, and I'll do one more round. I turned the gas all the way up. Still making dragon's breath, so I'm okay with using it at this point. But one more. Well, because it's my phone, there's virtually no way to turn it on and be on the right side of it. So we get to take a walk around. You can tell that the noise from the forge has gone down a lot. That's because it's just plain less volume of gas burning through and pulling oxygen with it. Just the roaring oxygen is what you hear, the roar sound. This looks pretty good. I'll start right there. Rolling around. Just a tiny bit of overlap each time. Keep the creases out. And that's a chunk of steel. One big piece of it, I think. Yeah, you can hear the forge starting to hoof. That means it's going to run out shortly. I'm not sure if that's a crack. I don't think I can get it to focus in for you. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. In and out. Could be just an overlap, in which case it's no big deal. Yeah, I'm seeing it stand proud. Put this down. Go around, turn the heat off. There. And at the bottom. Now it's just a matter of letting the forge cool off enough to reach in there with a pair of tongs and take that brick out. Put another brick in and go at it again. In case you're wondering, that piece of black steel is 1180 degrees. 87 on average, if it'll focus. Don't touch any black metal in my garage. Just automatically figure, even this, I'll smoke my glove if I touch it. But I'm not stupid because that just burns off leather. So, that's it for the day. See you next time on Opa Plays with Fire.